Man, for not having a city council meeting this last week, there's actually a lot of information I'm going to be providing today about spring in Fort Collins, things to do, Mother's Day. And then there was a lot of things kind of just happening over this last week. And also, we're expected to get a fair amount of rain and snow in the high country, specifically, not snow down here. We should be good, but a ton of rain in Fort Collins over the next few days. So this is Live in Fort Collins, where we come to you every week, Monday, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and talk to you about things that are happening in Fort Collins, things that happened over the last week. Generally, we talk about city council meetings, but there was not a city council meeting last week, so there's nothing for us to report back on that. But there was some big decisions made from the Civic Assembly for the Hughes Land, which will be presented to City Council in May, but we'll talk about that here shortly. And then we'll end with some things to do. We've got Mother's Day coming up this weekend that looks to be gorgeous in the 70s and even low 80s possibly, but appreciate you guys watching. If you're watching this live, feel free to leave a comment in the, with me, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. And if you're watching this on a rerun, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll make sure to respond. That being said, let's get rocking and rolling. A couple of weeks ago, the owner of The Cupboard, which we had on our podcast, came into and talked on during public comment about an affordable housing project that's being that's basically going through the review process right now for a Remington parking lot that has about 163 parking spaces, of which 75 are permitted and 81 are 2-hour public spaces. I can say I have definitely parked in this parking lot, multiple times. It is one of the larger parking lots downtown, not a parking garage, but a parking lot, and it's free. Comparatively to our parking garages, which our parking garages are also basically free. You get your first hour free, and I think it's like $1 per hour after that. So they're very, very affordable, our parking garages down in Fort Collins. But there is a plan between Housing Catalyst, Downtown Development Authority, City of Fort Collins, lots of different departments that are coming in and having a conversation about building another affordable housing project, because this is right to the south of 140 Oak. That was a very successful, I think it was about 72 or 79 affordable housing units, right smack down in the middle of Fort Collins. And this is an important, piece to having a successful downtown, from my perspective. There are a lot of waiters and waitresses, bar managers, retail managers that want to be, that don't want to have to drive or commute in necessarily to Fort Collins, but the rents are so expensive, the housing prices are so expensive, it's hard to buy and afford rent. So projects like this allow for, those, I don't know what the right phrase, working class individuals to afford to live and work down in Old Town. So it's an exciting project, but there are a lot of business owners that are concerned because parking's already an issue downtown. And my first inclination was, build a parking garage in the basement or on the top of this building, however that might work, or a few stories of parking spaces to start and then go from there. So I don't know what the solution is, because it is a very valuable piece of land. I was actually, we sold the Stuffed Burger Bar earlier this year, which backs to that parking spot. And I was looking at, these developments that have happened in and around this area. We had Tony's looking west, we had Tony's to our left, we had a couple of operations to our right. And then we also had a little bit of a redevelopment building that had condo units above it. And then we had where Perkins used to be, a huge apartment complex was built there a few years back. And, I'm looking at these 1-story buildings and this parking lot as extremely valuable land. when you consider that Pat Stryker bought, the Bohemian Foundation bought, the Lyric for $2.3 million, which is a sliver of a piece of land right there. And this, I think, like a block's worth of parking. I don't have the exact, let's see here. Does it have? Doesn't have on this article the size of the parking lot, but it's a 163 parking spaces, so we could do the math. What would that be? What about 10 feet by, 15 feet as far as a parking space? So 150 square feet times 163. Lots of square footage on this parking lot, plus all of the roadways for driving and pass-through, things of that nature. So very valuable land, especially, like I said, when Bohemian Foundation was, bought that sliver for $2.3 million. So it's definitely a conversation that the city, business owners, Downtown Development Authority, Housing Catalyst are going to have, and hopefully they can come to, an agreement, an understanding that doesn't impact parking too much, but also maximizes that land space. I mean, talk about if you have 70 some odd affordable units at 140 Oak, and then you've got another 50 to 100 units on this project. It just allows for a lot of flexibility for people that are working there. So that is going through the works right now. I'm sure there'll be a lot more conversations as time goes, but we'll be watching that closely. An article came out that talked about the Colorado's preschool enrollment more than doubled under the Universal Preschool Program. In 2020, we passed Proposition EE, which essentially funded 15 hours of school for, I believe, 3-year-olds that met the criteria and 4-year-olds in the state of Colorado, which saved families on average $6,100 per year. We had our son Rocky in it last year at Cruz, and now Werner actually allows that as well. So we will have our youngest in that program when the time comes, but he's a little young yet. And we loved it. I think we ended up doing a little bit more than the 15 hours, or possibly we were at the 15 hours. I can't remember. My wife kind of ran that, but it increased to 52,617 children ages 3 to 4 for the school year 2023 to 2024, up from or an increase of 31,277 from the previous year. It moved us from ranking number 27 nationally to number 3 in the for the number of 4-year-olds in preschool. So excited about that. My brother-in-law and sister are both teachers, and they have talked with me numerous times about how important preschool is and was for kids that are coming into their school. They're elementary school teachers, and kind of the preparation that they come with to elementary school is much greater than those that are just starting kindergarten. But, the expense, right now we're actually doing a second year of preschool for our son Rocky, and it's about $500 a month for us to go to Genesis. But we just felt like he was a little young. He would have been on the younger side for kindergarten, and was also not like behind, but just maybe not as prepared for kindergarten as we felt like our daughter was. So we held him back 1 year, and then we had to pay for it, which we did minimal research to see if we could do 2 years of UPK. I believe you can only do 1. So we were having to pay for it this year, but I mean, $500, is essentially $6,000 a year. A little bit less, about $4,500, because we have 3 months of the school of June, July. So I guess it would be $5,000, not $6,000 of childcare, of preschool this year. So not cheap, but very worth it in our opinion. And Rocky's definitely flourishing and excited, and definitely ready for kindergarten next year. But if you're in Colorado, UPK, Universal Preschool, for any 4-year-old, before they're ready for kindergarten, 15 hours a week, which in itself is quite difficult because I will say, we had to coordinate pick up and drop off, at least one of them. Janae and I were able to do kind of the other, but it was essentially like 3 hours a day that we were doing, like 9 a.m. to noon. So it's like not at the very beginning of the day, and you're going to have to kind of take a lunch break and go pick them up in the afternoon, but it's great. And we had a phenomenal preschool teacher. So definitely super excited about that. Municipal broadband breaking ground and available to 400 to 500 people in Timnath, Colorado. It is contracted with Loveland's Pulse. Loveland, Fort Collins, and Estes Park all have municipal broadband available. And, for gigabyte speed, it's, or for 250 megabytes, it's $60 per month, up to $200 per month if you need like 10 gigabytes. But it's available. It's going to be about a 3 to 4 year build out for Timnath. And they're going to fund this by $20 million in capital improvement. The one thing I can say about Timnath, and I looked into their budget recently, probably a few months back, but this municipality is flush with cash. And, my uncle was the mayor for a few years, and he wanted to make sure that he was looking at fiscal responsibility and taking care of the community and not, spending too much, because their sales tax revenue was just amazing with a low overhead for, city expenses. Because, just this year, I think it was last year now, the police department, was broke ground and went vertical. So there isn't a ton of city expenses comparatively to its revenue. And so projects like this are exciting because it is a very well-off town financially that can afford this. If I'm wrong about that, and you're in Timnath and you're like, what are you talking about, Patrick? We're broke. Let me know. But from my perspective, that's what I understand. Looked at the city budget, and a lot of good financial strength in Timnath, Colorado. I saw this come up a few weeks ago. The Book Ranch. So the Book Ranch is absolutely disgusting. It is a porn shop, and I believe they call them arcades. And they're there. Anyways, it is on a prime spot down near CSU, just south of Laurel, and it went up for sale for $1,050,000 by a friend of mine, Patrick. I'm very curious how he knew this owner. So might have to give him a little grief on that one of, man, how'd you know this guy or gal? I'm not sure, as far as that goes, but it used to be originally an auto body, and now it has been the Book Ranch for more than 20 years, and it's for sale. We don't know if it's going to be a continuing business of, the Book Ranch, or a new operation is going to go in there. A couple of years back, maybe a year or 2 years back, there was an old dilapidated building to the north of the Book Ranch and a dental shop that both of them got razed, and now it's just a flat parking lot. And then you've got the Book Ranch just to the south of that is for sale and under contract, without a lot of detail being given at this point. But that's a sweet sliver of land right there, especially if you can aggregate those. Very expensive, don't get me wrong, but if you can aggregate those, talk about value. That's for sure. Just not too long ago, a few blocks further south, the Schraders used to have a gas station right there, but it was on a really big corner. And now I don't know the address, but it's got ground level retail. The Dasbog used to be there, for rent apartments above it. And, you're just seeing these really cool projects take place, go vertical on these properties. So like I said earlier, when I was talking about the slot of parking down on Remington, there is just a ton of value there. And one thing I talked about with a lot of commercial owners when I was running Old Town Square was these types of projects. So, if you go to Boulder or Denver, the price per square foot is double, triple what you see in Fort Collins. And Fort Collins has stagnated really for its commercial rent space between like $20 to $30 per square foot, triple net. I will say there's been a pretty strong transition to triple net leases in commercial. That's probably been the biggest thing for landlords, is comparatively to gross and triple net. Commercial real estate 101. A gross lease is somebody pays just the base rent, let's just say $1,000, and then the owner of the building pays for utilities, common area maintenance, insurance, property taxes. And on a triple net lease, the tenant pays for everything. It pays for taxes, insurance, common area maintenance. It's prorated share of those, depending on the size of the building. So it can be a dramatic cost savings for the owner, which could take place of, rent increases. Because instead of maybe on a gross lease charging $1,000 and then like, hey, you know what, my utilities have gone up quite a bit, let's charge $1,500 to cover these utilities and common area maintenance and property taxes. Well, that's been kind of offset with these triple net leases. And I would have these conversations with these individuals and say, hey, listen, like, I know, we're talking about having a little bit of an increase, but shoot, there's the Oak Street project that's got 14 or so townhomes that are being built. You've got 140 West Oak. You've got 200 apartment complexes going off of Walnut, Willix, over kind of in the River District. And you've got this very strong growth. You got, the senior living development at Morningstar that took place over there. That's absolutely gorgeous. And yes, you're going to have more competition with some of these ground level retail spaces, but you're also going to have additional foot traffic in these areas on a more consistent basis. That's what density brings, is a lot more foot traffic. So projects like the Book Ranch and Alpine, I think it was Alpine Dental, if I remember right, that was raised there, and then the Lyric and things of that nature. It makes sense that, they're selling for these crazy numbers just for the land. This week, Spring Creek Trail is going to get closed for a few miles for the Spring Creek cleanup. So nothing, if you're taking it on a weekly basis, as far as a commuter, it's a great trail from Spring Creek, Spring Canyon Park, all the way to Timberline, where it connects into the Poudre River. Phenomenal trail, beautiful. Absolutely recommend taking that trail. But this week it'll be closed from the 6th to the 9th, and then opening them back up this weekend. So for your Mother's Day, you can get out there, ride on Spring Creek Trail, and enjoy the outdoors. Which the Siphon Overpass, we're super excited about that connection. There's just a lot of cool projects going on. And Harmony Road is seemingly getting closer and closer to being done with construction. So if that's been annoying to you the last couple of weeks, like it has been to us, we're getting to the end of that. There was a crazy article. I shouldn't say crazy. There was an interesting article that came out that said 2 Colorado cities are among the cheapest places to retire, study shows. And that's Go Banking Rates named Colorado Springs number 13th and Fort Collins number 22 on cost of housing, groceries, healthcare, and other typical expenses. I don't really rely on this article because, they said Colorado Springs monthly expenditures for necessities checked in at $1,768 per month, and Fort Collins a little bit more, averaging $1,795 per month to finish in 22nd place. And I did not dig into the numbers on this, but I am definitely going to, I'm considering giving a response video on a pre-recorded video to this, because, this is where I think it's important to understand, where people are getting research and data, because we had somebody reach out to us that was relocating here from El Paso. And I don't know if that individual, did any research at all before coming out here and visiting, or maybe they read a couple of articles that were a bit older and dated because, there was a conversation of like, they wanted like 4,000 to 5,000 square feet backing to water with mountain views for like $1 million. And, in the early 2000s, or even like the early 2010s, you probably could have found something like that. But over the last 5 to 7 years, I did a poll on our community post that talked about how many $1 million homes were sold. And also in my newsletter, which if you're not signed up for my newsletter, feel free to send me an email, a text, whatever. Get your email where we send it out weekly. Good information, links to things to do, conversations, our podcast, our real estate review, which we are going live tomorrow at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk specifically about real estate in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado and the general, national information as well. But that is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But ultimately, this we come in and are probably going to do a response video to this because the stats and information that's being given isn't necessarily it. So I kind of went down a little tangent right there. So sorry, I lost a little bit of my train of thought. But I think it's a great place for people to retire. $1 million. There was 42 homes in 2018 that sold for $1 million or more in Fort Collins, and then last year, over 190 homes sold for $1 million or more in Fort Collins. So the research that people do, it's imperative, it's important. We want to be here as a resource. So if there are any specific questions, people come in and say, hey, are there 1-bedrooms available for $700? And I'm like, no. Maybe if you go to Greeley, but definitely not Fort Collins. And that way, you can get what I would call information, kind of from the source, boots on the ground, that people are doing it on a daily basis. Because I don't know if that $1,700 that Go Bank rate is saying for Fort Collins for a senior includes housing and gas and insurance or health insurance. I don't know. Maybe there's, long story short, my mom, who is not going to be on a mortgage, we're talking budgets and things of that nature. And I was like, Mom, I think comfortably you could be living on $3,500 to $4,000 a month comfortably in Fort Collins. Like, you're still able to go travel with that, go out to dinners and eat. So that was the number I kind of threw at her, and she's at a retirement age, and, but $1,700, no chance. Sorry. Windsor shut down Future Legends sports activities, and my sister actually got impacted by this. Now, the facility is in receivership, so I believe it has a somebody operating it so that it doesn't get into disrepair. But the big dome there was a little girl that got hurt. Checks are being bounced by the owner. The article is super interesting. I think he was trying to show proof of 110 million pounds from some tribe in Canada that he has given to him as far as collateral. Just crazy. I mean, the operator, I don't know him. I don't know anything about him or his operations, but it's a very unfortunate thing, because I think it could have been, and hopefully eventually will be, something quite special in Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, and specifically, of course, Windsor. But I think my sister showed up for a game and was like, oh shoot, it's closed. And it was as of April 27th. It got shut down. Now, I believe not everything, but the dome and some of its facilities have been shut down. So super sad thing in Windsor. Hopefully that gets turned around. Somebody takes the torch and runs with it. But for the time being, on that east side of Windsor, kind of a bummer thing. Alrighty, this week, it's a beautiful, when I was just outside, it was a beautiful day in Fort Collins. Sunny, 50s, low 60s, but definitely supposed to rain over the next few days, specifically tomorrow. Rainfall totals for Fort Collins. Fort Collins is 1 to 1.5 inches over the next 3 days, all the way up to in Colorado Springs area 3 to 3.5 inches. So definitely going to be a wet next few days, but that's great. Hopefully the farmers get what they need. Hopefully, we can avoid any type of hail for the greater Colorado, Front Range region, and just get soaked with some good rain for the trees and grasses and all that good stuff. And then snowfall up in the mountains. Red Feather, 3 to 4 inches. Loveland Pass, 12 to 18 inches. I believe Loveland Pass is usually like one of the last snow hills to close. I'm not sure. I think most everything is closed at this point, I believe. But getting some decent snow up in the foothills. We'll get to something here soon as far as what to do this spring, because it's a great time. It's beautiful. You're starting to see the ducks and the geese, the goslings. I don't know if that's true. I think that's what you're supposed to say, but coming around and just a great time. Some big news of the Hughes Stadium, Hughes Land, I should say, 164 acres on the northwest side of town. A civic assembly, 20 people spent over 30 hours, and they came to a supermajority, 75% or more, agreed to a multi-use decision for Hughes. Specifically, they're recommending a multi-use concept that could include a bike park, open spaces, natural area, and conservation/education features. So they're going to present to the city council on May 27th. And from there, the city council is going to vote on, I don't know if they're going to vote that day, but they will subsequently vote on if they are going to take that up. They're suggesting, a potential bike park, fields, outdoor community spaces, fields and pavilions, and gardens. They are looking at natural areas, getting it back to restore to some natural area, walking paths and things of that nature. They do also are suggesting, let's see here. They do want the buildings that are considered for this area to all be built in one kind of location in this 164 acres. So we'll see what happens from here, because there are a couple of groups that are petitioning to get this back on the ballot this November to allow the voters to choose what they want to have done exactly on this space. So it is an instrumental spot. If we're talking about slivers of land selling for $2.3 million. Now, this sold for $12 million from the city of Fort Collins, bought it from the state of Colorado, and there was a swap of land and things of that nature. There's more, than just the $12 million agreement. That being said, it is this is a very rare opportunity for the city of Fort Collins citizens. So definitely interested to see how that goes. We had a video that came out, best towns in northern Colorado, and had best towns, reasons for it being the best, with like 6 or 7 different areas. But, Bass Pro Shops is breaking ground at Crossroads and I-25. And we continue to kind of pound the pavement saying, hey, like this area, US 34 and I-25 is absolutely explosive growth with tons of opportunities and very exciting future. And Bass Pro Shops is just another kind of domino to fall that brings excitement to this area. So in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see a vertical building there, and lots of outdoorsmen can go shopping. Maybe that's probably maybe a little bit of a bummer for Shields, but Shields is just crazy. It's awesome, but it's pretty close to there, and I believe they've got some pretty decent outdoorsman equipment there. So there'll be some competitive nature going on between those two. But let's see here. All right, spring in Fort Collins, northern Colorado. It is Mother's Day this weekend, so happy Mother's Day to all of you. Hopefully you can have a great brunch. If you are trying to schedule a brunch. Like today, you need to get online really yesterday or last week to schedule a brunch for Mother's Day. I looked at the Emporium, it's booked up. Looked at Ginger and Baker, booked up. Or excuse me, I haven't. Ginger Baker was fine, but it was the Emporium and a couple. Jessup Farms booked up. So if you're looking to get reservations, you need to get going today. But Mother's Day is always the day after Mother's Day. You can plant your vegetables, plant your gardens, your flowers, and they should be just fine. Make sure to do some soil preparation. We're doing a little bit of xeriscaping on our grass, but with the Colorado Fort Collins Love and Water going up 30% utility rates, I'm definitely kind of long-term planning for a bigger patio type area, front patio in our house, and a lot less sod. Just because it's beautiful, but there's other options for it. So now, if you're looking for something to do, I don't know if it's rushing yet, but the Horsetooth Falls Trail, which is only about 1.5 miles, down and back, or maybe it's a quarter mile, 3/4 of a mile there and 3/4 of a mile back. So for 1.5 miles total. Regardless, I think it's just very short. It's a quick hike, relatively easy. Our kids can do it. Be on the lookout. There are snakes that are starting to come out. They're making their way out of hibernation. But the Horsetooth Falls Trail specifically, it actually does have a small waterfall, and it's pretty cool for probably the next month and a half, where after that, once you get into like mid to late June, early July, that thing turns into a trickle, and then it is dried up. There's no falls at the Horsetooth Falls. So if this is kind of the time of year with water runoff, ice melt in the high country, that you will see a waterfall at Horsetooth Falls. So make sure, whether it's this week or in the coming weeks, to get out there and hike Horsetooth Falls to actually see the waterfall. I got in trouble with Janae recently because there was a free mulch day in Fort Collins, and I didn't realize the excitement or how many people would be lined up for this, because it's basically on Riverside and LeMay that you can come in and get free mulch, bring your truck, bring your trailer, and get as much as it seems, get as much of it as you can. And the line for that was backed up incredibly. And Janae was like, I would have come to this. Why didn't you let me know? And I said, you're going to come and sit in this line for ages? And she's like, absolutely. What else am I going to do? I was like, I guess. Okay, cool. But I got in trouble for not telling her. So this morning I sent her a link saying, hey, there's a spring plant sale at the Gardens on Spring Creek, May 17th and 18th, which you do need to get tickets for. And I think there's only about 4 or 5 time slots with multiple tickets available for those time slots available left. So I did send that to her. I told her to sign up for it. Hopefully I can get out of the doghouse on not letting her know this information. I was like, hey, you can always watch my weekly lives, but she's working Mondays at this time, so there's always reruns, but she doesn't love me. Let's see here. There's a community volunteer day on May 17th. Fort Collins Nursery, we've got a podcast coming out, and things to do this weekend. There is a food truck at Fort Collins Nursery. So if you're going to get flowers and plants, you can definitely go there, get a food truck. It's a schnitzel. What is it? It is the Schnitzel Wagon. I've never seen it, never heard of it, but it's this Saturday, May 10th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Fort Collins Nursery. So definitely lots of different things to do, lots of different activities. So springtime, super exciting. Mother's Day. I didn't watch the Derby yesterday, 2 days ago. There was a lot of great sports on. Go Nuggets. Sad to see the Avalanche lose, but it's a great time. A couple other things for Mother's Day in spring, and then we'll get on to some ideas, of things to do this weekend, which there are some pretty cool ones. A Mother's Day market at Breckenridge Brewery, May 11th, 12 to 5 p.m. So you can go get some food, a beer, and then shop some kind of crafts, arts and crafts at Breckenridge Brewery. And there's a Mother's Day concert at the Lincoln Center at 2 p.m. Do need tickets for that. And then there's a Mother's Day tea party down in Loveland, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So mothers and daughters, it's a mother and daughter activity. I think we're going to I think after realizing how few places are available for brunch, whoops, I will be barbecuing this weekend for Mother's Day. So again, happy Mother's Day to all of you. Let's see here. This weekend, there is a 25 and 50 mile trail run called the Quad Rock Trail Run. No thanks, not for me, but for some people. It's 25 mile and 50 mile prices are $125 to $170. So if that is your jam, which I do have a lot of people that are, avid outdoors people, runners, all that kind of stuff. So if that is your jam, that is an opportunity for you this weekend. Big shout out. Esteban, I believe is his name. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Esteban at Genesis. Broke his PR and I think had a time qualifier for the U.S. marathon of like 2 hours and 17 minutes. That got him 35th position at the Boston Marathon. And so huge congrats to Esteban, just a super kind individual. I see him running all over the place. I'm like, not for me. This was interesting. I have never heard of this. And a friend of mine was kind of considering doing this as a business opportunity, but there is a business called Riverside, Colorado. And this, there's a Mother's Day open house, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And people can tour some of their tiny houses, cabins, and glamping tents. This looks pretty cool up the Pooter Canyon where you can go, rent, stay the night. There's coffee, bonfires. You're close to the Mishawaka. Definitely something that I didn't know even existed, but might be something that we need to check out. And if you're interested in that, I can send it your way. But I went to the website. Cool information. Definitely something that is, worth exploring for sure. And hopefully they can stay and like they've got, an admin center. It just looks pretty cool. That is all I've got for you guys this week. I don't see any comments as far as any questions or anything along those lines. And happy Mother's Day. Stay dry over these next few days. Prepare your gardens, get them ready. Today would be a great time to go throw out some fertilizer and get that yard nice and greened up. And then we've got our sprinklers getting turned on this Saturday. Probably are very safe with freezes. So if you ever have any questions about anything or need recommendation for vendors, would be happy to be that resource for you. But appreciate you guys watching. And make sure to join us if you're interested in specifically real estate. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., I'm going live again. A little bit shorter time period, 25 to 45 minutes. Well, 25 to 40 minutes or so. Specifically real estate. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.